Nanny versus parents, how everyone can win the battle for the baby's heart. By the mom doing her job. She won't, though. She won't. I promise to God she won't. There's going to be something more fun and cool and exciting than hanging out with these kids. This idea that the women just love being mothers is the biggest cope, right? Because society says, women are natural nurturers, right? And the women, they're like, but women, here's a choice to kill your kids. And the women are like, we got to kill them. We got to. Abortion, we're going to march for this. Okay. And then they're like, okay, well, I guess it's not a life. I guess. Okay, sure, ladies. And then they're like, okay, but you guys can work and save money. So in your 20s, you could save money for your kids, and then in your 30s, you can have a kid and then you have money for the kid, right? And you can stay home. And the women are like, nah, I'd rather just get Botox and liposuction and boob jobs and clothes and go to events and travel. And I would rather do that instead of saving money to have a kid, right? And I'd actually, when I have the kid, I do want to work and I want someone else to do the job. But I want the clout of the kid, so I definitely want. But it's like you can have every shred of evidence that a woman doesn't want to be a mother, but still society will say that we're like dying to be mothers. I don't think so. I really don't. I think women like the control a kid gives over like society and a man and like the attention they get from the kid. But I don't know if the moms really like love their kids. Like a dad can have a kid that hates him and he still loves the kid. But the mom, if the kid doesn't like, you get those overbearing mothers where they're like, be a doctor, be a lawyer. And if the kid doesn't do exactly what the mom wants, it's like you have hell on earth to pay. If you're having a hard time shaking off the feeling of jealousy or resentment over your nanny's special bond with your baby, it's time to address the problem and be a mom, right? We're going back to the answer and quit your job, stay home, be a mom. Now, there's real situations like poverty, right? But we're not talking about those situations. We're talking about the situations where the mom wants a 3-bedroom house instead of a 2-bedroom apartment, right? The kid's going to be happier in the small house with the mom there. But, then Tracy sees Diane lives in the suburbs with a 10, bedroom apart or house or, in the city, and she's going to these events and yada, yada. Anyways. Keep in mind that most nannies are trying hard to bond with the children in their care. If they fail at this, chances are they won't remain employed for long. And they don't want to displease the parents. On the contrary, they're very interested in pleasing them. For that reason, it might be a good idea to talk to your nanny about the problem. Start by saying you're thrilled that the bond she has with the baby and you're happy that you're happy with her work. But you're fired and I'm going to be a mom now. That's how it should go. Right? That's how it could go, But no. Then explain that you feel a little left out and would appreciate her helping strengthening the baby bond, right? So now this is another cope because they're trying to get the nanny to do the work of bonding with the baby. But instead, they're like, can you do it for me? Can you make the baby like me? And kids are pretty like, if a kid doesn't like you, kids love everybody. If a kid doesn't like you, something's wrong. Perhaps she can teach your child's favorite lullaby or some sort of soothing techniques only good nannies know. If your child shows a preference for the nanny more than just occasionally, it may be time to reestablish your connection with your little one. Maybe focus on your child interacting with him or her in a relaxed, comfortable setting. You may need to sing, dance, or act goofy as you work your way back into your child's heart, but he or she will eventually fall under your spell. Infant massage, increased breastfeeding, or other forms of skin-to-skin contact. If your baby continues to show a preference for the nanny, again, it may be helpful to go home. They're not going to do that, though. Get a work-from-home job, right? For example, if there is a competition between the mom and the female nanny, switching to a male nanny may be a solution. God, they just do everything to make these moms feel like they're not bad moms. They're like, okay, we're going to get a male nanny. Male nannies, also called mannies, tend to be very fun and energetic caregivers. They also may be less likely to displace mom in the baby's eyes. It's important to keep in mind that although feelings of jealousy towards your nanny may crop from time to time, this will be short-lived. Most parents whose babies love their nannies soon realize that the nanny baby strong bond is essential to the well-being of their child. Remember that parents usually go to great lengths to find a nanny that is warm, loving, patient, and fun. What baby wouldn't want to fall in love with such a person? And when your baby does, you can pat yourself on the back for providing for your child a good caregiver. Until the caregiver goes to college and leaves and your kid is devastated. It's usually how it goes. Okay. Here is a TikTok of a woman talking about her experience being raised by nannies.
I'm Mia from LA. Please like and subscribe. Growing up, it was just me and my mom, who was a famous photographer working for big brands and celebrities. So you'd think, with a photographer parent, I'd have a beautifully documented childhood. Well, you'd be wrong. I hardly had any pictures because mom was always too busy, and I was raised by nannies. Sure, mom gave me everything, but she couldn't make much time for me. She did try by setting up her studio at home, but once when she was in a meeting, I slipped into her darkroom and switched on the lights, and all her photos were destroyed. That nanny was fired, and mom relocated her studio. And then she hired a lady named Susan, who was the coolest. Susan could play hide and seek with me for hours. She'd always let me do her makeup, and she even taught me how to slide down our main staircase. She'd pitch up a tent in our backyard, and then tell me stories around a fire. And what a storyteller she was. She'd just make up magical tales in the moment, and I was hooked. What are you thinking, you lily-livered, yellow-bellied scallywag? I was thinking you should be my mom. Susan laughed it off, but I was kind of serious. She even gifted me my first notebook when I turned 8 because she knew I loved writing stories, and that meant more to me than any of the presents mom had sent. Yeah, she couldn't make it to my birthday. Once when I was 9, Susan had taken the day off, and I ended up being stuck with mom at a photo shoot at some historical building. Mom, I'm bored. Read your book, Mia. But I'm also hungry and sleepy. Think of something fun to do for a little longer, okay? Okay. But you better come find me soon. Yeah, soon. So I skipped off to find an amazing hiding place. I thought it was clear to mom that we were playing hide and seek. As I waited for her in my spot, I dozed off. And when I woke up, it was kind of dark. I tried to find my way back to mom's shoot, but I was totally lost. Luckily, a security guard found me and took me to the nearest police station. And the only number I knew by heart was Susan's. Sometime later, both mom and Susan came running in, and I jumped straight into Susan's arm.
What an L. Can you imagine? Your kid's running and she runs past you to the nanny.
Sweetie, you really scared your mom. Give her a hug. But I was so mad at her because she didn't come looking for me. Susan would have never let that happen. Soon after, in 5th grade, I came home from school one day to find a girl my age in the kitchen eating my cereal. Who are you and why are you here? And who eats cereal for lunch? I eat what I want when I want. You're not my boss. Now shoot. I was about to smack that thief in the face when Susan walked in, and she introduced the girl as Harper, her daughter. I didn't even know Susan had one, and I felt a pang of jealousy. Your mom has to travel out of town more often, so she's requested that I live here now, and I'm moving in with Harper. Isn't that great? I'm sure you two will get along wonderfully. I was certain that we would not. She was a nuisance. She threw away all my markers caps so they dried out, spilled juice all over my bed to make it look like pee, and gave my favorite shoes to a stray dog. But I only had to scream, and Susan would tell her off. Harper would tag along with us everywhere, and she'd glare at me and make comments under her breath when Susan was out of earshot. If you don't stop annoying me, I'll tell Susan.
I wanted to know what happened. It's okay. But yeah, so again, you got a couple issues here. When it comes to nannies, I'm going to give my final thoughts. You got a couple issues, okay? If you get a good nanny, right? The challenge you have is the kid becomes attached to the nanny and the nanny goes. So you fall in love, you're super close to these nannies, right? They're like your best friends. And then you're like, where did they go? And then you just never see them again because they go to college, they go whatever. And then it's like a recycle thing. Or you get a bad nanny and the child is tortured if the kid doesn't like the nanny. Imagine you have to go home and see someone that you are not related to, that you don't like, and is there indefinitely. Those are the challenges you got with nannies. Now, I don't think they're the worst thing in the world if they're not the kid's primary caretaker. But the thing is, the day-to-day boring tasks are really what matters to a kid, right? It's like who's picking up the kid from school, who's eating dinner with the kid, who's going to the sports games, right? That's the stuff that matters. It's not like the big events or like a trip once a year, right? It's the small things day to day. And I think a lot of moms are going to realize they kind of missed most of their kids' childhood.